Welcome back to Canyonside Chats. I am Victoria Steele, your senator from Tucson's District 9. We've had a good week in the Senate. We got four Democratic bills out, and we know that we will probably have more on the way. So we're looking forward to hearing more about that from some of the sponsors of those bills, and we'll find out what those are about in this episode.
Well, I was very pleased today to have Senate Bill 1352 pass out of the Senate. This is the Fred Karamazov Memorial, and marks a day of remembrance. I think it's January 30th every year to remember the victims of the incarceration of the Japanese citizens at the beginning of World War II. Many of them were incarcerated here in Arizona, and I think in 2 or 3 camps. And it was one of the great injustices in our history that was perpetrated by the President of the United States, by the Supreme Court of the United States, by the Congress, and the state legislatures in Arizona, Colorado, and California. And Mr. Karamazov was conscripted, I guess, or sent to the camps along with his family, and protested after their ultimate release about 3 years later. And his case went all the way to the Supreme Court, where he lost initially, and it took 20 plus years after that before there was any relief relative to that whole era of ours in our country. And under President Reagan, there was a bill passed in Congress that compensated the folks who were incarcerated. I think it was about $20,000 a year or so. But I think the most important thing is just remembering his steadfast dissent and the story of his life, how he never let up and eventually prevailed. And his message of his life was to dissent when you're right and never be violent about that dissent, but to be perpetual about it and never give up. And so it was, I was very honored to sponsor the bill, and it was very gratified to have it pass out today unanimously.
So I have 2 bills that have passed the Senate unanimously and are now over in the House, and I have 2 more that are almost ready to go. The 2 that have passed, one is Senate Bill 1444, and has to do with mental health days in K-12 schools and clarifying that mental health days are an excused absence. That's a really important bill to me, passed unanimously now over in the House and being heard in the House Education Committee next week. The second is Senate Bill 1445 and expands on the work we did last year with suicide prevention training. What this would do is it would require anyone studying to be a school counselor or a school social worker at our state universities or community colleges. They would have to receive training in suicide prevention as part of their curriculum. That bill also passed the Senate unanimously and is now over in the House. So proud of our work on those 2 bills. We've got another 2 bills that are almost ready for a final vote here in the Senate. So we're excited about the success that we've had this session in getting bills out of the Senate and hopefully through the House and hopefully to the governor's desk.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Senator Contreras from District 19, Assistant Minority Leader here at the Senate. We have a few bills. I have a bill that has made it out of the Senate chambers. The bill enables a person, let's say domestic violence situation, where a couple is having adult beverages and end up in an altercation to where one of the parties needs to get out of the situation with their children, and in doing so are pulled over, fleeing the situation in their vehicle. Knowing that they have had these beverages in their system, but ultimately knowing that they had to get away from the situation that they were in. It enables for them to use that if stopped and thus been taken in by officers. It lets them use this as their defense, knowingly breaking the law, but for circumstances that they could then bring up in court, and it just helps. It helps a person just at least use that to their defense, knowingly breaking the law, but in regards to an actual situation. So that's in essence. There's a little more to it, but that in essence is the bill. It's just clarifying some language that's already in law. There's a way to get there to that final passage, but This just clarifies it, makes it a little bit easier for people to use it in their defense. So hopefully we can get it past the House, onto the governor and signed, and we can make it to the finish line.
Well, that was good news. Thank you for joining us. We will have another Canyonside Chat next week, and we'll keep you updated.